Welcome to the annual free process work webinar. Every year, I think during the year, what's new? What's fresh? What are we doing with the processes that we haven't done before? And then in December, I make room and time for everyone to be able to come and see what's new. So some of you may be joining for the first time. For some of you, this may be your 6th, 7th, 8th year of seeing the free process work webinars in December. This year, I'm very excited about our work because it has the capacity to support quite big shifts if it is indeed one of the issues that is at play in our experiences of seeing ourselves with extremely critical eyes, or not being able to recognize ourselves when we look at ourselves, or of having self-hate, or having an experience of being somehow not right. So I'm going to take us into the slides because I think they'll keep me on track. But before I go into the slides, I'm going to have Jaya speak about what our plan is for this evening, and so that you'll know that you can send her messages. Jaya?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So tonight during the webinar, there will be some recorded demonstrations of the process that Sarah is going to speak about. And so some things to know before volunteering is that this will be recorded. And so please make sure that you have your own consent to share your work. Your work is deeply valuable to everyone on the call and all those who will listen afterwards, but it will be recorded. And so make sure you're okay being recorded and you're okay being on camera as well. It helps it to be more engaging for everybody and for Sarah as well. And if you would like to be in the demo, then you'll send me a private message or write it in the chat. And you'll let me know, and then I'll add you to the lottery, and I'll roll there. Things to start to think about is, as you listen to Sarah describe the process, do you have a situation in which you see yourself through your mother or father's eyes, or in which their perception of you is impacting you in daily life, and you'd like to work on that?
Yes, thank you, Jaya. All right, I'll open the slides and we'll take a look at this funny and sort of amazing process, which comes to some degree out of constellation work and out of the convergence, as always, of how does the wisdom of family constellation work, as begun by Bert Hellinger and continued by my beloved teacher Elena Veselago and other practitioners throughout the world now, how does that work done in the round, done 3D, inform our verbal process work is one of my constant questions. And how does what we know about relational neuroscience and the ways that brains change in relationship to one another, how does that impact our forming and crafting and thinking about and leveraging the information in relational neuroscience to make our brains better places to live, as my beloved friend Catherine Rouvoir says. And so here we are, the December free process work webinar, releasing the mother's and the father's gaze. And we'll focus on shame tonight a bit, but it really actually, it can really be many different kinds of emotions, and we'll talk about different kinds of emotions, and we'll also experience that in the demos. And there'll probably be at least 2 demos. There might be more, just depending on time. So releasing the contracts our parents have about how they see us or how they saw us. There are many situations that can give rise to a feeling of shame. And there are a number of different remedies that the process work that we do has to work with shame. There are ways to time travel with accompaniment with an army of friends in our imagination, or a care team of friends who come and travel with us and arrive in the past. And we have this sudden sense of being accompanied and advocated for and understood in moments of trauma or shame. We can time travel and add information about relational neuroscience so that we can time travel to our past self who's having an experience of shame. And we can say, oh, 6-year-old Sarah, would you like to know that shame is a kind of alarmed aloneness? Would you like a little bit of acknowledgement that, of course, your nervous system feels like absolute dog do right now because you're spiking cortisol, and that shame gives your body the hugest hit of cortisol of any emotion. And a lot of times our younger selves, for whatever reason, really enjoy that we would time travel to them with relational neuroscience. And so there's something about the way that the relational neuroscience brings self-compassion and rejoins us to the human race, because we belong. We're just, our bodies respond just like everybody else's bodies. Another way that we can time travel is with acknowledgement of the big picture. We can acknowledge the different rings of context that are in place, that were part of the reason that we behaved in ways that we didn't enjoy, perhaps, or were not in integrity with our own selves and have shame about that. Oftentimes, working with context allows us to settle into self-compassion in new ways. We can, one of the ways we can use shame is to manage our rage. This is number 4, because rage often terrifies people. And there's often a trauma component to having been present for other people's rage. And so we can claim our own life-serving rage by releasing contracts that we have and doing time travel to moments of trauma when we were scared by people's rage, because our own rage is very important. And as Jaak Panksepp said, he said, we can't turn down the volume on rage unless we link it with love. So that's what we mean by life-serving rage, a sense of rage that's linked with love. We can work with disgust and returning the shame to the system. So a lot of times people live with a persistent sense of self-disgust that continues for decades. And what we can do when we're working with that is we can do a time travel and we can give back the shame that children will pick up shame because of the way that its neurophysiological state is so similar to and integrated with the collapse state. When we talk about fight, flight, freeze, it's not exactly a tonic immobility, but rather an immobilization so similar to shame and self-disgust that we can start to disentangle those and to say, here's the shame that my family has carried, and I return it to my family. When we believe we aren't good enough, we can do unconscious contract work. When we have persistent and toxic shame, when a parent or caregiver is consistently ashamed of us, we can do the work we'll be learning tonight, releasing our parents' contracts about us on their behalf. We can discover and release any contracts we have broken. We can release false bodhisattva vows. We can time travel even to the moment of conception if we have a sense that our shame has lasted for our entire lifetime. So what we're focusing on tonight is the releasing our parents' contracts about us on their behalf, which we'll see. It won't make that much sense in this moment, but it'll start to make more sense as we go along. I'm just going to breathe for a little minute. The reason I wanted to show you this slide was to give you a sense of the expanding and widely ranging possibilities of ways to work with the processes that resonance work offers us, so that you have this sense of possibility and like little gleams of interest, curiosity, perhaps even tiny gleams of hope as you work with whatever you've brought tonight. It may not be shame at all, but this kind of gives you an example of the wide menu of choices. So now we'll go into the neuroscience of feeling shame because of the way that our parents saw us. However our mother looks at us, we join her. So here's a picture of a mom and a baby wired so that researchers can see what happens in the mama's brain when she's looking at the baby. What happens in the baby's brain when she or he or they are looking at the mama? And one of the things that scientists have discovered is that we kind of download our parents' brains. In particular, people who were assigned female at birth do almost an identical copy of their mother's brains. So we really have a lot of, but it happens for people assigned male at birth too. It happens for boys and for girls. And we own that. That's ours. I mean, we've got our mom's brains in us for better or worse, and we get to make it for better. We get to do upgrades not only of our own brains, but we get to do upgrades of our mom's brains, so that when we're kind of in the mothering place of the brain, which is the way that the prefrontal cortex reaches for, extends itself to, nestles and holds the amygdala. When we're doing that work, we're very much in the model that our mother offered us. And sometimes, if our mama had a lot of trauma, then it's really important to upgrade our internalized mother, to kind of do some healing for our internalized mother, as well as for ourselves, because then we get to really almost cellularly transform the view that our mothers had of us. And that's what we're working on tonight. Okay, there we go. Even if it's very shaming, even if the way our mother looks at us is very shaming, we will leave ourselves and then see ourselves through our parents' eyes. And when someone we love has a negative view of us, or an indifferent view of us, or a view that is simply different from who we are, it's difficult to integrate. So we try to look at ourselves through the other person's eyes so that we can understand them and predict what's going to happen next. Neurobiologically, we encourage ourselves to leave our own perception and try to see ourselves through the other person's perception in order to be able to find ourselves in the relationship with this very important other person. This happens in childhood. This also happens in our grown-up relationships. So if you're someone who had like a really sweet childhood, you grew up and you found yourself in a domestic violence situation or relationship, then you might notice that you start trying to look at yourself through the partner's eyes in order to be able to predict and understand them, in order to join them, in order to love them, it's quite a common habit to try to understand the way that people who are important to us are looking at us. But if we keep it, then it can be quite devastating. The after effects can be quite devastating. Because what we really need is to know and remember who we are and see ourselves through our own eyes and see ourselves through untraumatized eyes. This is really, untraumatized eyes are warmly curious and are inviting of connection and have a capacity for delight. So the bigger the difference between how we're seen and how we feel, the more we end up with contracts with ourselves to continue to see ourselves through the other's eyes. Because it's kind of dangerous not to, in a way, or incredibly alienating not to. Now I'm starting to wonder, am I making any sense? So if you would be willing to give me a thumbs up if I'm making sense, say not quite getting it, totally left me behind, that would be very helpful for me. I'm so grateful to see your faces. Thank you for giving me the feedback. We have some sort of making senses, but not completely making senses for some folks. If you have a question that you have a sense will help you make more sense of this, would you please put it in the chat? And we'll take just a few moments for questions right here and now so that everybody can travel together, I hope. Could you repeat the last sentence? I think the last sentence was something like, the bigger the difference between how we're seen and how it feels to be us, the more we end up with contracts to try to continue to see ourselves through the other's eyes. So if my mother sees me as, I wrote about this on Facebook because this was when I discovered this particular kind of contract work. I was thinking, I've been in a shame spiral, kind of a heavy shame spiral for about a month now. And that's a really long time for me with all the resonant support that I get to stay in a state of shame. And I wonder what the heck it is. So I thought, how am I seeing myself? What does it feel like to be me? And so when my mom was looking at me, I had a sense that she saw me, and she often used words like this, that I was a lump, that I was a stick in the mud, that I was sick, that I was, that there was something wrong with me. Those were her words to me. So my mom had a lot of trauma, and it really affected the way she saw the world, and it affected the way she saw me. But inside myself, I didn't feel like those things. That was not how I felt inside. But in order to be able to try to stay sane, because you have to be grounded in your mom's nervous system, if she's your primary caretaker, in order to be able to stay sane, you have to try to understand her. So I started, when I was very small, to see myself through her eyes so that we were at least having shared reality rather than me having an entirely different reality from the most important person in my life. So then the next question that I had for myself was, do I want to keep seeing myself like this? No, I didn't want to. I released that contract. But then I thought, I wonder what it was that caused her to see me in such a strange way that was so different from who I really am. And as I sort of stepped into being her for a little minute, then I could feel how much it saved her from the shame of her own trauma, the shame that came with her own trauma. If she could see me as other and non-responsive and insensitive and closed off, and that there was something wrong with me, then it allowed her to take all of that pain that she had inside and just put it over here with me and look at it as if it were completely other. And that allowed her to have sanity and survive. And then my mom's been dead for about 11 years. And so I asked, you'll hear this in the process work, in the contract work, we always most often have a sense, if we've made the vow to our very most core essential being, then we have the ability to ask that self that we made the contract to, do you want to keep this vow? So I said to my mother's essential self of Sarah's mom, do you want to keep this vow? And the essential self of my mother, which is a very sweet thing to find sort of a sense of who our mother would have been if she had not had to live through tremendous domestic violence, tremendous alcoholism, tremendous chaos, tremendous mental illness. How would our mothers have been without those traumas? Or if they'd been totally belovedly supported by somebody, they'd be different. And so the essential self of our mother is a part of the discovery, that process that we go on in this journey. It doesn't have to be part of the discovery process. It often is part of the discovery process to discover that, yeah, our mama was traumatized. And does the essential part of her being, the untraumatized part of herself, really want to see her child in the way that she saw her? My mother's essential self's answer was, no, I don't want to see my baby like that. I want to see Sarah just as she is, I don't want to see her through these eyes of trauma. I release this vow, I revoke this contract, and I give myself, Sarah's mom, I give myself the blessing to see Sarah as she is, which was a very sweet lifting. And it actually did lift this shame cloud that I'd been living under. So now that I told that story, that may sort of give you more of a sense of the narrative structure of it. I'm going to take a look at the chat again. See what kind of questions there are. And Karuna says, when we are quite traumatized, how do I see ourselves through untraumatized eyes? Or is there a pathway to doing this over time? Yes, my sense is that I spent maybe, I hope it's faster for folks who are studying this material. I think I spent the first 10 years just trying to breathe one breath of warmth for myself. And hopefully the contract work makes it faster. But this work that we're doing as we begin to step into the world of resonance is a slow nurturing of the pathways, the neural pathways of self-warmth. And those neurons grow with exposure, with modeling, with deeper understanding, with the release of contract work, with time travel resonance. And they take some time to grow. So yes, it's a pathway over time. And Rocky's asking for examples of rage linked with love versus rage on its own. Rocky, that's not the focus of this particular webinar. There's a rage webinar that focuses on that completely, that Giles put a link to in the chat. And Kintree says, does this just pertain to our early childhood? Because I feel like we live in a world where no one sees anyone else very clearly, where it takes a long time and pretty mature friendships to be really known accurately. That's a beautiful observation, Kintree. I agree with you completely. And you probably, after you wrote this question, you probably heard me talking about domestic violence and other experiences of trauma that can have a similar impact on us when we're adults. And Liz writes, for marginalized people, does society play the role of impactful parent, and can this ongoing traumatic impact be interrupted and mitigated? That is a beautiful question. We absolutely can use this process in that way. We can absolutely notice how we have contracts, and I've done this around my own body issues and around aging. And you can definitely say, you can stand as society having the vow about how it sees you, and let society start to play there with like, what happens if you find the essential self of society, which is actually a very beautiful question, or the essential self of community. But also we can release any contracts we have to see ourselves through society's eyes. You'll see that there are two elements to the contract work. One is letting go of our own contract to see ourselves through the other person's eyes. And then there might be another piece of work that's about the mom's trauma or the society's trauma. But we're only led there if we have a warm curiosity about it, because we never, ever in this work of resonance, never, ever want to imply in any way that we're supposed to be taking our mother's part, even though it will happen naturally as we go through the experience. I mean, it often happens naturally. It will happen. I'm sorry, I got a little thrown off by the sound coming off mute. I'm just going to breathe for a moment because I got flustered. If we start to upgrade our internal mom, it's really cool. But we don't want to be forced into doing it. That's what I want to say. Sometimes we need to turn away from our moms and say, no, not going to step into you. I've stepped into your point of view and your experience my whole life. That's not for me anymore. That's what I want to say. Okay. Oh, and that's what Julia is just saying. Yes. Yes, Julia, I think I was just speaking to you and I hadn't yet read your chat message. Yes, we can feel like we're the ones who have to do everything. But then it's no fun. I think part of it is unconscious contracts we might have, Julia, but part of it is that we may just never have gotten quite enough resonant support yet for what it was like to be this person's child or to be in this family. We need a lot of acknowledgement and support for that before we naturally turn toward them. And I'd love it if we all got to do the work of feel it when it naturally happens. And Carol says, if we start our healing journey today for our childhood trauma, how long does it take to recover, if it can fully recover? Well, here's the cool thing, Carol. If we start today, then there's like immediate small changes and insights that happen that start to make things easier fairly quickly. But there's this wonderful different plateaus of change that happen. One of them is that people stop at about 8 months. People stop being quite so convinced that their internal voice of criticism is telling the truth. At about 3 years, they start to feel this work kind of swirling throughout their brain and making more sense on many different levels. At about 5 years, there's another shift. And then like at about 8 or 10 years, people start to dream their resonating self-witnesses. They start to, in their dreams, they start to have their own resonating support self come to them and hold them in their dreams. And dreams start changing their trajectory. You know, old dreams that we've had over and over again for years and years begin to be changed by the presence of the resonating self-witness. At about 8 to 10 years, people start to wake up into their own arms, to wake up in the morning and to hold themselves and say, oh, Sarah, welcome to the world. I'm so glad you're here. And so these are very sweet changes. It happens slowly over time as we allow ourselves to develop warm community, warm relationships, a sense of being heard, a sense of being in company with people who have a warm curiosity about our voices, all of these things happen as we begin to work with the material and find others who are interested in the material. Because as other people start to become interested in the material, they start also to develop more capacity for shared delight and delight in each other. And if we're doing it on our own, which we can do with the books as well, I tried to make the books as friendly and as warm and as nurturing as possible, then we're still sort of on this same pathway, I have a sense. Scotty says, I was subjected to evil by an anti-mother, not sure how to discover the essential self. Please explain. Scotty, I would not recommend that would be a movement that you would do. You would be working just to bring your own essential self in, because a sense of anti-mother and evil is a really big sign that that's not the right, that taking her point of view to find out why she has that point of view is not good. It probably is something that you had to do over and over again when you were small to try to figure her out. And the best thing is to just work with the contract, all the contracts that you find that allow you to create a healing barrier between yourself and her. And Allie says, when to step away and when to upgrade? Does one need to do both at different stages for full healing? I really believe that full healing will come if we follow the body. And so, like, does your body want to step into exploring your mom's experience and doing an upgrade? Or does your body need to not do that? Do you have a feeling of nausea or tight chest or constricted breathing when I talk about doing this? That's a sign not to do it. And our full healing comes each on our own journey as we follow our body's messages and truly integrate them. And then Adrian, and excuse me, someone just came home. I didn't expect them so early. 1 minute. I'm going to close the door. Now, there's a cat still in here, so I might have to do that again. And someone said, did your work change your relationship with your mom? I worked on forgiveness and it changed for me. My work totally changed my relationship with my mom on one level. And then I keep discovering new ways that I have found to carry her judgments and pain with me. So, others may have had less trauma than I had, and others' mothers may have had less trauma than my mother had, in which case I think it's the burden is, or the journey is perhaps simpler. I'm not 100% sure, but it does definitely change. It changed me entirely. Yeah. And Peace writes, new life goal, dream the resonating self-witness. Okay, wonderful. We'll come back now and we'll talk about the contracts really quickly before we do the lottery. Understanding unconscious contracts and sacred vows. When we are unaccompanied by warmth and resonance and something difficult happens, there we go. The amygdala, that's a little part of the limbic system that's tucked deep in our brain, kind of between our two ears, deep inside. The amygdala remembers, there's one on the left side, one on the right side, remembers everything connected with the difficult moment. And here it says on the slide, an elephant never forgets. The amygdala never forgets. It does, however, get to share its memory with the hippocampus once it starts to heal. But the amygdala tangles all the things that happen in the traumatic experience together, making knots of trauma. And this means that if we if we were in a car accident and we smelled diesel fuel, then every time we smell diesel fuel, the car accident's going to come up. Or if we were downhill skiing and the rain was the snow was turning to rain and lightning. This actually happened to me. Lightning was going on the snow field, on the ski field, and I was actually sitting in a chairlift, and the lightning hit the chairlift bolt of my chair, but it went all through the chair and I was insulated by all these plastic layers and didn't hit me. But the people behind me were screaming because they thought I had been fried. And I realized, like 15 years later or 20 years later, that I never went skiing again after that. Like my amygdala had knotted together skiing and danger of life threat from lightning. So that's what the amygdala does. It's trying to figure out what's dangerous in the world and to keep us safe from those dangers. So it says, basically, I will never go skiing again. And those tangles of trauma, because the amygdala can't tell time and doesn't have a time stamping capacity, our trauma memories have no sense of time. What this means is that we can have lots and lots of intrusive memories that come up and take us over completely. And all of a sudden, like if we're remembering a moment of shame, the shame flushes through our whole face. And we're flushing now. We're 60 years old. We're remembering something that happened when we were 3, and we're flushing. And that is a sign of the amygdala having no sense of time. It just is reliving the experience again. This is painful, but what's so interesting and fascinating about this and hopeful about this is that because the amygdala has no sense of time, we can time travel with resonance and heal trauma and change the way the brain is holding memory. So those memories, those intrusive memories, will remain active and alive within us until they are met with accompaniment. So the amygdala remembers everything that the 5 senses are picking up in the moment of the trauma. And it also remembers the thoughts we have and the sense we try to make from what has happened. And the promises we make ourselves so that we will never be so vulnerable again. I, Sarah, will never go on another ski chairlift as long as I live in order to save myself from horrible death by lightning, no matter the cost to myself. That's a basic trauma contract. But we can also make contracts about our emotions. We can make a contract with ourselves never to be angry again, or never to be sad again, or never to be afraid again. Or we can make contracts with ourselves to always be angry, or always be sad, or always be afraid. These contracts that are connected with emotions are early nonverbal nervous system contracts. They arise from deep feelings from infancy and are made to balance families or to take care of ourselves. So these 2 little faces are faces of beings who are fully capable of making unconscious contracts already before they have words that help them to integrate their own nervous systems with the nervous systems of their family. And this is true for all of us when we were little tiny people of this size. The biggest mistake we can make, it's not really a mistake. I should change this slide. Remind me of that, Jaya, if you have. It's not a mistake. The biggest thing we're up against is that we may not be able to understand yet how deeply we loved as infants. That is one big thing, to begin to understand how deeply we loved. Not how deeply we were loved. That's good too, but more I'm looking at how deeply we loved, how huge our baby hearts were, how much in love we either were or should have been able to be, depending on the degree of our parents' trauma. How much communion there is for little beings before the age of 3, before language comes. And after as well, but it's so big. So when we make these unconscious contracts, we are meeting very deep needs. And these needs later become self-sabotaging behaviors. And the deep needs that we might be meeting include our own survival. If we had a mother who was very traumatized and unpredictable, we needed every ounce of predictability we could get. We had to start to take her view in order to survive. Maybe we have the deep needs of our parents' survival. I often find contracts where I don't want my parents to be alone. I don't want them to be lonely. I don't want them to be alone. I will do anything to keep them from being alone. We'll have deep needs to honor our parents' sacrifice, to atone for the burden of our existence, to save ourselves from disappointment and shame. And here are some of the self-sabotaging behaviors which can be based on unconscious contracts. And we're not exactly working with these tonight, but the work that we do tonight will probably start to loosen the jar lid on some of these if you have these. Procrastination, never starting or never finishing, believing negative messages about the self. This one we are working with. I am too much, too little, ugly, not smart enough. We can blame ourselves for everything. We can be perfectionistic. We can inflict cruelties or violence on others. We can habitually shift into the left hemisphere with contempt, analysis, strategy, unsolicited advice. We can avoid the truth. We can withhold self-expression. We can avoid being seen or believe that we should be invisible. And then we can also have addictions and compulsions, which are their own, which have some of their own little wrinkles in them that we won't be working with this evening, but that you can find out about in other ways from my website. So as we move our understanding into the verbal realm, it changes our brains. Once emotional experience has been named, the body relaxes, the message has been received. Once the amygdala's tangle has been teased apart into its separate elements in an atmosphere of resonance, it can release the tangle, let the hippocampus start time-stamping stuff. Words can be examined and challenged, contracts can be torn up, and vows can be revoked. So here are the two places that demo recipients will be working with tonight. Unconscious contracts to release the shame our parents had about us, or to release ourselves from seeing ourselves through our parents' eyes. So the first one is, I, Sarah, solemnly swear to you, my essential self, that I will see myself through my mother's eyes. And then you can describe the seeing in order to all kinds of things. We'll find out what some of those things are tonight, no matter the cost to myself. And or, as I've been talking about, we can step into the parent and experience their vow to see us in a certain way and release it. I, parent's name here, solemnly swear to you, my essential self, that I will see my child in this way, describing the seeing, in order to, no matter the cost to myself. We'll put those words into the chat. And there's a release process that follows that you'll hear and start to get used to. And Jaya, is it okay to put the handout for the unconscious contracts into the chat as well for our participant, for our people?
Sure, I'll find that and put it in. No, it's not
Okay.
hard. Just need to find it.
Okay, very good. Here are the words of the two approaches we're going to be looking at tonight. And so our next order of business is to find out who came out of the lottery first, Jaya.
Kalita, are you still on? and willing to do more.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let me
Right.
just.
All right.
Oh, Sarah, is it okay to work with a dad again?
Of course it is.
Happens to be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I, Kalita, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will see myself through my father's eyes.
I have to even breathe there because it makes me feel a little I got just like a little lightheaded, and I've eaten. It's not from,
Well, I plunged us in.
yeah. Okay. But yeah, here, I feel like I want to use my name, that childhood name.
Okay.
I, Kelly, do solemnly swear to my essential self. I kind of want to say almost, I've never used this one for like to my father's guardian or something, like to whoever protects my father, like that I promise them.
Okay. That I will see myself through my father's eyes
I will see myself through my father's eyes.
in order to.
Well, I mean, this is too simple, but to keep him safe,
Yeah.
to keep him safe. I will tell you the thing that really struck me that you shared earlier was the frame of it's like I have a backpack and he filled my backpack with all of his trauma. So I carry it for him, and when he sees me, he sees that.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the composter. Historically, I'm the composter of the family's trauma.
Okay.
I'm the one who,
Then let's start with seeing if he wants to release his vow, if his essential self wants him to be carrying this vow.
oh, we can do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, that's a really great place to start then.
Yeah, I, Kel's father, solemnly swear
I, Kelly's father, do solemnly swear
to see Kelly as. Do you have any adjectives, or do you just want to say
this is
as?
the original one. This is
Yep.
the one that we're seeing. To see Kelly as all of my sensitivity and um, uh, my range of emotion, my
Life energy.
vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
What was that word you said?
Life energy, I said.
Yes, yes, yes. My vitality, my life energy, even my intelligence. He farms
Yeah.
that out to me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah. My body says a big yes on that.
In order to.
In order to not take the very next breath, like he's holding his breath.
Yeah.
He's
In order.
been holding his breath for about
Right.
80 years.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah,
In order to not take the very next breath.
yeah. She'll breathe instead.
Yeah. Yeah. No matter the cost to myself or
No
my
matter
or the people I love.
no matter the cost to myself or her or anybody.
Mm-hmm. Now you get to do something funny, which is to step into your father's essential self.
Okay.
Essential self of Kel's father, did you hear the vow that you made?
That he made to me.
That did you hear the vow that Kel's father made?
Yeah. It makes me want to weep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it what you want for Kel's father? Essential self of Kel's father, is this vow what you want for Kel's father?
No. I wonder if I'm a kind of distorted version of his essential self. Can the essential self is worried about him?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that okay? So
Yeah.
I don't want it, but I do want to protect him.
Right. Right. Is yeah. Yeah.
I do want to protect him
Right.
from the role of essential self. Yeah.
Yeah. Does the essential self of your father
But it knows that he can have a feeling and still be alive.
Oh,
Probably,
yeah,
probably.
yeah.
He does have asthma. So a lot of feeling might tighten his windpipes. Maybe if he goes a little at a time. Yeah, a little at a time. But it's not her job. It's not her job. No. So
Then the essential self gets to
not a
say,
good vow. It
I
is
release. Yeah, the essential self gets to say, Kel's dad, I release you from this vow.
or at least we can revise it.
Yes.
Minimally, we can revise it.
I partially release you
I
from
partially release you from this vow.
And instead,
I give you the blessing of incremental micro feeling.
oh,
So you get to feel, Ron, in your body that you can survive feeling.
oh,
And they get to be your own feelings in your own body.
oh, oh. So now let's come back to Kel. And what's it like to be you after having taken this little journey?
It feels a little lighter. I feel like tickles in my feet. I feel it feels a little different. Yeah.
Now let's check
Okay.
the first vow. I, Kelly, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will see myself through my Father's eyes.
Oh yeah, we're coming back this way.
Yeah.
I, Kelly, do vow to my essential self and like I guess it was my father's essential self. I think it was to both. That's what the guardian.
Oh yeah.
I vow to my essential self and my father's essential self to wear the clothing and the backpack of his trauma and all the ways he might feel it.
In order
to help him not breathe and not take the next breath, to not feel, to keep him safe by not feeling,
no matter the cost to myself.
The cost to myself or him ultimately.
Do you want to keep this vow?
No.
Do you want to release it?
Yeah, I can unequivocally release it.
Okay.
I don't have to revise it. Yeah.
Kelly, I release you from this vow.
I release you from this vow.
And I revoke this contract.
And I revoke this contract.
And instead, I give you my blessing to.
Instead, I give you my blessing to. Practice having your own feelings in your own body and let the next steps figure themselves out. Do not jump steps. Do not go ahead. Do not pass go until you've had your own feeling. I hope that's still a blessing. It sounds a little
wonderful.
Bossy. Sounds a little bossy.
I like it.
Okay.
I'm like drinking the blessing in a little bit myself too.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you like it?
I do like it.
Okay.
I do like
what's most important. It's not.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do notice it's a little similar to his.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Kel, is this an okay place for today?
It is. Yeah.
Right. Is it all right to come out to the chat and see what happens?
Yeah, I would
with
welcome.
Shared with needs met and gifts received.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have Sarah D writes, shared reality of bearing the burden of emotional pack animal to my father and his legacy within my body. Lena writes, amen, Kalita. Sasha writes, super shared reality, Kalita, the relief I feel with the space for the parent to have their own body feelings and not carry it. Thank you. Heather, the sense of relief felt is palpable. What a beautiful witnessing. And Jaya says, need met for delight in a bossy self that insists on your mattering. Robin says, truth. Christina says, self-expression. Liz, powerful love. Jennifer, joy and hope. Hochima, new experiential living of addressing parents' vow and its release. Kintri, needs met for kinship in similar struggle with preventing my father from having to feel. Yeah. And then Gayatri writes beauty. And then Stephanie has a question that we'll come back to. And there was another question from Adrian. And Vicky Marie says, I so love the honoring of small steps and a pace that's individual. And Maddie says, bossy blessings. No, fun. Thank you, Cal. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we transition?
No, that feels good.
Okay. So the next thing is to answer these two questions. Can you explain the needs met, gifts received step? It's lovely. So one of the things that happens for us as humans in circles where there are other people present is that when we have more emotion or share more vulnerably than others in the circle, then our nervous system gets knocked off balance. And then just it's very important, do we consent to hear the other voices in the circle about how needs were met and gifts were received, and to say like, yes, it's fine, or oh no, just a few, or maybe none at all. But if we do consent to it, then what happens is we get to know that our work was of service. And when we hear how there's like a profound difference between somebody telling us we're brave and somebody telling us that our work met needs for bravery and inspiration. So we don't want to tell somebody what they are. We want to speak about how we were touched or moved in our hearts by being able to be on this little journey with someone else. So that was the answer to that question. Stephanie Marigold, you can let me know in the chat if that was helpful. And Adrian writes, is this how intergenerational trauma and constellation work is done? This is like constellation work compressed into anywhere from an hour to 5 minutes. But it's like the unconscious contract work is a way to do constellation work verbally. Constellation work is often done with objects being different people, or also constellation is sometimes often done with people being different parts. So if we were working with Kalita in a constellation and she came with this question, we would have set up her father. And she would have chosen, for example, Nina. She would have said, Nina, will you be my dad? And then she would have said, Susan, will you be me? And then she doesn't have to be herself anymore. She just gets to look at what's happening. And she gets to watch it. And sometimes, and very often, there's a kind of a resonance that happens where the people who are holding those roles make movements that we could never make, or express the depth of our pain, sorrow, terror, rage in ways that our bodies would never have permitted us because of our own contracts. And we go, oh yes, that makes sense. Of course it was that bad. Or we say, oh yes, that makes sense. Yes, I am stuck right there. Yes, that is my unconscious contract. So when we do the unconscious contract work verbally, we're kind of taking a big old spatial experience and compressing it into words. And sometimes it's very beautiful. and incredibly helpful, and allows us to take big steps or little steps that are really important in our healing process. Kel, thank you. Good. And Jaya, who is the next person in the lottery?
Just give me one moment. I moved off of that. Katrina B.
Katrina B, or are
Yeah,
there
I think
multiple?
there's only one. I think there's only one Katrina. The
Oh,
Katrina that's waving at us.
hi, Katrina. How wonderful to see you.
Hi, Sarah.
What would you like to do
I'm
tonight?
actually, I go by Katrina BS.
Oh, okay.
As a joke.
Oh, I see. I was a little worried, but where, how shall we look tonight? What's
Okay.
our...
Yeah, my issue is with my father. And it's ongoing. He's still alive. And I definitely see myself through his eyes in many ways that I struggle with. The most pressing one, and the one that has been a constant through my life all the way through age 48, is that I am too emotional. Yeah.
Well, the very first thing we want to do is say, if you had a very good reason for seeing yourself through your father's eyes, what would it be? I, Katrina, solemnly swear to my essential self to see myself through my father's eyes in order to
Survive.
Very good. No matter the cost to myself or my children,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or those I love.
Right.
How is it to touch this?
Painful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Had you thought of it exactly like this before? Or is there something new about thinking about it like this?
Thinking, when you say thinking about it like this, you mean thinking about it in terms of a contract that I made?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, it's not new, but it's also not something that's very present either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens next. Essential
Okay.
self of Katrina. Did you hear the vow that Katrina made to you? To see herself through her father's eyes in order to survive.
Yes, I heard it.
How do you like it? Is it life-serving now?
It's hard to answer that question because in some ways it still is.
Yeah.
Because I'm still surviving through I'm still surviving in relationship with him. Like
Yes,
that's
yes.
still
Right.
still the relationship dynamic.
Right.
Yeah.
Is he dangerous if you don't predict him as much as you possibly can?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It occurs to me that a blessing, sometimes it helps to talk about what the blessing might be before we do the release, because it expands our sense of possibility and helps us to see a little bit the way that we're entangled in the threads of trauma. And when we have a dangerous dad, there are lots of threads of trauma. Is it okay to talk about what a blessing might be?
Sure.
Okay. I wonder if a blessing might be, since you have this sense of ongoing danger, if a blessing might be to completely release the way he sees you, unless you're with him or you're on the phone with him, in which case you can reclaim that capacity to see through his eyes so that you can understand him and predict him a little better. What would that be like?
I'm not sure I understand. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Do you see yourself through his eyes all the time?
It's often, and it's conscious work to reframe
Yeah.
my inner self.
Yeah. And
So,
what does he see when he looks at you?
disappointment.
Disappointment. Because his dreams for you did not come true.
Yeah, I don't even know if he has dreams for me. I think it's more like the reality of me does not match his fantasy of me. And so every time we interact, it's a constant reminder that I'm not the person he wants me to be.
So then you look at yourself and I wonder if you have a constant feeling of not being right.
Yes.
Mm.
But then it's a battle.
Because you have another part of you that's like, screw that.
Right.
Yeah. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So now just to kind of check in for me. If we come back to the first one, I, Katrina, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will see myself through my father's eyes in order to survive. And tell me what happens in your body. You said it was painful. Is it still painful?
Yes.
No matter how painful it is, I will do this no matter how painful it is.
Yes. That is a true statement.
Yeah. Do you want to say it aloud to hear what it comes out, how it comes out in your voice, the whole thing? I can walk you through it.
Yeah, I can also open the chat and look at the script.
Well, you added the stuff, so yeah. If you remember what you added, I've made a little note to myself too.
I added stuff.
We did together. We added
okay.
the in order to, right?
Right.
Yeah. And
Okay.
this time through, I will see myself through my father's eyes, maybe add as a disappointment.
Okay. I, Katrina, solemnly swear to you. Who am I swearing to? Myself.
Your essential self.
I, Katrina, solemnly swear to you, my essential self, that I will see myself through my father's eyes as disappointing in order to survive, no matter how painful it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then just see what happens with the pain.
Well, it's present, and clearly in speaking the words and hearing you say them previously, my essential self is going, fuck that. Sorry, you're gonna have to.
It's great. Yes, I like that. I'm very happy to hear from your essential self. Yeah.
But then but my nervous system, my whatever part of my amygdala or whatever is going, yeah, but you have to, in order to survive,
So
keep doing it.
now I'm noticing that there might be another element of the vow. Let me just check with you.
Okay.
I will see myself as a disappointment in order to survive, and in order never to be disappointed and heartbroken by my father's gaze again.
Don't know if that's landing.
Well, here's the thing. How can it be that seeing yourself as a disappointment makes you safe from him?
Well, that's a good question. Because when I argue with him that I'm not a disappointment, it enrages him more. Does that make sense?
Makes so much
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I, Katrina, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will see myself as a disappointment in order to keep my father from becoming enraged.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in order to protect myself,
From
from his rage.
uh,
Yeah.
if you already are like, I'm a disappointment, it's true, then it doesn't matter how angry he gets at you because you're already angry at yourself.
No, it's more like agreeing with his view in order to tame the beast a little, so that, because when I don't agree with him, then that enrages him. Yeah.
I will see myself as a disappointment in order to protect myself from my father's rage.
Yeah.
Does your essential self, does your nervous system want you to see yourself as a disappointment all the time, or just when you're with your father?
Really hard to tease it apart. Definitely when I'm with my father, which is one of the reasons why I live 3,500 miles away and try not to see him very often at all. However, my mother just passed away a few months ago.
Mm.
So I'm now the one performing cognitive and emotional labor for him, because that was what she did. And I'm the only other female member of his family, and in his patriarchal world, that's my role. So yeah. And he has dementia. So there's a big mess.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, it does feel like that contract in some way does help keep me safe. I don't like it, and I really want to burn it, just like the picture you showed. Yeah.
So just check and see if there's any partial release that you want to do tonight. Is there any little tiny way that you want to lift Katrina's body off the hook of that contract, or any part of her, or any partial lift on the hook?
Yes, there is.
What is that?
I don't know. I don't even know how to do it.
Okay, so here are some possibilities for partial
Okay.
releases. I partially release this vow and partially revoke this contract, and instead I give you my blessing to know that you don't ever need to argue with your father again. To know that you get to let him think exactly what he thinks, that you get to step into his point of view whenever you need to, and that you never need to define yourself around him. That's like a bit like to explore the possibility that he cannot destroy you. I can keep going with more partial ones, but if you are having responses, it will help me hone and go around the objections.
It all sounds great. I guess I'm just having a hard time believing I can actually release it. But like, because immediately, like, listening to everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, and I don't know. So let's try it.
Well,
Because really, I mean, like, what do I have to lose besides still remaining in this contract?
right. And you may have to lose your child's broken heart. It's almost like, I mean, that might be what the stakes are. is how obliterated your heart was as a little one by his incapacity to see you.
Yeah, terrified. Actually, I was terrified of being seen by him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that may also make this vow a safer vow.
Mm-hmm.
That if you have a vow to see yourself through his eyes, it can help to manage the terror of the way that he saw you.
Yeah.
I want to sort of say for everyone that a part of this can be time travel. If time travel works for you, it can be helpful to go to the terrified little one and acknowledge her terror and see if she wants to come home with you, so that you don't have a terrified little one, an older one, an older one, an older one that's just living in the terror and in the fear. And I don't know if time travel is something that feels safe or that seems welcome, or if you just want to stay with the contract work.
I think time travel would be a great idea.
Okay.
Just feeling it in my body and feeling like, yeah, that little girl needs it.
Yeah. So if we step through time and space, do we find her in a particular time, or is it all the ages of Katrina?
It is all the ages of Katrina, but we could go to the little one. Yeah.
Where do we find her? Is she in the kitchen, in a outside, in a dining room?
In the living room, and Dad is in his recliner.
So if we step through time and space, the very first thing we need to do is to freeze him, is to put him in a golden bubble so that he's floating up towards the ceiling and we can't see his face. Is that okay with her that we do that? Is it okay with her that we're there? Is it okay does she need him to be airlifted out in a helicopter? What does she need?
I think in order for her to feel safe, he needs to not be in the room at all.
So we'll just put a sky hook down. We'll make a hole in the ceiling, put a sky hook down, airlift him out, carry him away. How does the little one do?
Better.
Yeah. Do we want to say to her, have you been, are you always completely terrified of this man and the way he looks at you?
For better, that was yes.
Yeah. Is there a sense, does she have a sense that she could never do anything right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Does she need a little acknowledgement that she has very good historical evidence to show that she cannot expect to ever do anything right?
He has volumes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like libraries full. Yeah. How does she do with you there with her and with me there with her, if she likes that?
Yeah, she's okay with that. Mm-hmm.
She's okay with it. Like, it's okay. Does she have a little mistrust of us?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She just wants her mom.
Oh, she just wants her mom. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's your sense? Do you want to bring your mom in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just bring her mom in, who will touch her, hold her, make eye contact with her. What does your mom do?
That little girl would just hold on to her legs and hide behind her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And she would just reach down and put her hand on her head.
Oh. Oh. Yeah. How does the little girl's body respond to her mom touching her?
You feel safe with her.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
While she's safe with your mom, is there anything else that she'd like us to understand about how scary this is, or how much she longs for understanding and predictability to be able to decode her father and make him less dangerous?
I'm so triggered. I don't really know what you just said.
Let me use better words. Yeah. Is there like a need? Would she like it if somebody understood that she actually has to leave her body in order to deal with how much terror her father brings? Am I making any sense yet?
I think so. I don't know about the leaving the body part.
That it's maybe just that it's unbearable, that the terror is unbearable?
Yeah. She hyperventilates in his presence.
With
So
good reason.
she can't breathe.
Yeah. He's scary.
Very.
Yeah. What happens if you sit down on the ground so that you're about the same height as her and you say to her, it's true, he's very scary. He was very, very scary.
Yes. It is. He is.
He is and was.
Yeah, he is still very scary.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Does that acknowledgement bring you back a little bit from how triggered you are? I want to make sure we're catching somehow the.
I can breathe.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a good sign.
That is a good sign. Yeah. I want to like let her see somehow that we understand the terror? Would it be like Antarctica, like ice everywhere for thousands of miles? Or would it be like a forest fire? Is it more?
Yeah, it's more fire. It's definitely hot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
If we brought a giant forest fire and said, is it this much terror?
Yes.
Yeah. And what happens with your breath? What happens with her breath?
I don't know. Nothing.
Are you breathing? Are you breathing, or did you stop?
No, yeah, I'm breathing. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense that she's breathing?
Yep. She
Uh-huh.
is breathing.
Oh, good.
Mhm. Yeah. It is interesting to conceptualize that feeling of terror with fire and how fire consumes oxygen and how
Yeah.
like it takes it away from
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
and from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would she like you to bring her and your mom home in a golden floating bubble that just lets them move through time and space?
Would she like me to
Yeah.
bring her and my mom in a bubble with me
Yeah.
to like present day?
Yeah. Would she like to leave that time?
Um, I don't know. Because present day, there's no mom and dad is still here. So,
Hmm. 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 Would she like to take her mom to a safe place where she gets to breathe all the time?
would my little young self like to take mom to a safe place?
Mm-hmm. Where a safe place for the little girl,
Um,
or is it safe enough with just the dad out of the house? Or does it need to be safer?
um, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not following.
Yeah. The little one doesn't want to come to present time
Right.
because your dad's still here and your mom's gone.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. She loves her mom.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, shall we leave them there?
I don't know.
Does the little girl just want to be with her mom there in the house without your dad around? Is that just what she wants?
Yes.
Okay.
Like forever.
Forever. Yeah.
Except he always comes back.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
Is it okay for you to tell her, you lived through this? I'm your grown-up self. I have the dad now. I have dad now.
What do you mean by I have dad now? I'm sorry, my cognition's struggling.
Yeah, no, it's partly me. So in the time travels, we'll usually, once we get the body of the younger self calmer, we'll figure out where is a safe place to take the child imaginally. And sometimes
Okay.
it's present time, but you've got your dad in present time with dementia and no mom, so that doesn't seem good. So where's the safe place to offer this little one? I'm imagining it's with her mom, but I have a guess that it's not in the house because the dad comes back to the house.
Right. I really just don't know.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. What's your favorite nature place?
Um,
Do you like the seaside? Do you like big trees? Do you like rivers?
I like them all.
Do you like fields of grass with women dancing?
No. I'm sorry. I mean, that's fine, but
No,
that's not
no,
where I'm going to
no.
put her.
No, see, you know something.
I like most places in nature are places that feel really good to me. So I have a hard time picking a favorite, but I do really love the forest, like an old growth forest. Let's just go with that.
Let's okay.
Sorry.
Let's take her. Yeah, no, let's not put her in a field of grass with dancing women. Let's take her to the old growth forest with moss everywhere and
Yes.
hanging branches and
Mhm.
misty.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's good. Mushrooms.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's have her mom with her. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave them there.
Yes, exactly. And now we'll come back and just double check. Does your body, does your nervous system want to release the vow? Or does your nervous
Absolutely. My nervous system wants to. It did before too. I just don't, it doesn't feel safe to do it. Like,
Okay, does the part of you that has the vow, now that the little girl is safe,
yeah.
does the part of you that has had such a sense that it's a life-saving vow, does she still want to keep the vow?
The little girl.
No, well, the part of you that's so convinced that it's dangerous to let go of it, that's the part we want to be connecting with.
I don't know.
Then I think it's
I wish I had like a yes or but like
no,
I
no,
don't
no,
know.
no, no. No, it's very important to respect the body and to go as far as we can,
Yeah.
and to let there be an acknowledgement of the enormity of the terror, and start to understand how big and how much sense it is, how much sense it makes, and to let it kind of let that understanding begin to spiral. Like, and to let the little one be in a safe place. That's a huge movement. Just to take
Yeah.
the little one to a safe place is a huge movement.
I think my goal in this moment is to accept myself for continuing this contract.
Yes, yes. And even maybe to celebrate might be too big a word, but at least to give an enthusiastic thumbs up to the safety that it's always brought you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Katrina.
Yeah.
Is it okay to come out to our circle and to let people name needs met and gifts received?
A couple would be okay.
2, 3?
3's good.
Okay. Don't look at the chat because I can't control just 3 people putting in needs
Yeah.
met, but I'll read 3 aloud to you and then we'll
Okay,
stop.
sounds good.
Yeah. Shared reality, integrity, and shared reality around the terror of the dad. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for
Wonderful.
holding that space.
Wonderful to see you again.
You too, Sarah.
Okay. Bye for now, Katrina. All right. And I'm just going to take a look at the clock and we have another half hour. And so we'll say, Jaya, who is next? Who is next?
Magdalena, are you still on and willing to do work? Your name just came up. Magdalena's not here, so I'll roll again. Give me just a second.
Thank you.
Let me check before I name names. Nicole C.
Nicole C.
And I'll go ahead and spot.
While you're checking, I'm going to just let the cat out. 1 second.
Okay. Are you still okay to work, Nicole?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Hello, Nicole.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. What's your sense of what we can work with?
Well, I've been working with my own therapist, who is highly recommended by you. Working with myself around shame. I experienced very early childhood violent physical abuse prior to 18 months. And I have 2 children of my own and been working very hard, to tame the shame, the condemnation, the messages that I inadvertently hear or experience, that I have no otherwise recollection of. So really processing kind of that place for myself.
Do you have a sense that there's somebody who sees you, who saw you in a difficult way? Do you have a sense that the shame that you experience is from how you were seen?
Yeah, I do believe that in terms of it was my mother, so my biological mother. The sense that I re-experience or that I revisit often is that I'm a disgust. For various reasons, I believe that. I don't believe that a conception was intentional. And it caused a lot of disruption as just by nature of being born. My adoption story. So I think I really messed things up for her. And that caused some reaction in her. So wasn't meant to be here. I don't believe that now. I don't buy into that, but in moments of shame and self-condemnation, that's what I hear.
So, so in this moment, we need to know whatever you believe now so that we can work with it in your body. It needs to be something that you can feel a little bit to help us work. So if you've worked enough that you no longer have that belief, kind of look for something that's not quite as intense, or if that feels like it's got enough charge to work with, let me know and we'll start there.
Mm. It is intense, but I do believe it still lingers in that I'm something to be ashamed of or disruptive.
Then we'll start with this, since these are the words you're using. I will believe that I am something to be ashamed of.
I will believe that I am something to be ashamed of
In order to
survive.
In order to survive.
Yeah.
Because if I believe that I'm something to be ashamed of, then how will I survive?
I have to believe that in order to survive.
Because if I didn't believe that,
then this wouldn't make any sense. Right? Like,
right, I will believe.
Why the injury? Why the fear? Why the terror?
Right. I will believe that I'm something to be ashamed of in order to make this life make sense.
Yeah, very much so.
No matter the cost to myself and my children. Now we're going to ask your essential self if she heard the vow. Is pronoun she okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Essential self of Nicole, did you hear the vow that Nicole made to you? To believe that there's something shameful about her in order to survive
and make sense.
No, in order not to be completely insane, in order to have some sense of sanity and groundedness, maybe even. No matter the cost.
No matter the cost.
Essential self of Nicole, do you like this vow? Is this a good present day life-serving vow for Nicole?
No, it's not.
Do you want Nicole to hold on to it anyway? Is there some piece of safety that it brings that we're not understanding yet?
I think it's because I don't understand her.
The mom? The birth
I don't
mom?
understand mom. I don't have a lot of information, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I can appreciate her trauma and her complexity, and I can appreciate rage, and I can appreciate what I represented for her.
Yeah.
And I can even forgive her.
Yeah.
But the extent of it, and then my own work with my own kids and the love that I have for my kids, is a huge disconnect.
Right. So then if you do you want to step into your birth mom for a moment and just see what happens? Do you have that curiosity, or is it too much a replay of something you've already done? Is it a trauma piece?
I can tell you I feel very anxious right now, but it's not, this work is not unfamiliar for me. It's currently happening, it's ongoing, and it's where I'm at right now in my own work.
Okay.
I think there's a part of me that refuses to go there because I've labeled that as monstrous, But then what ends up happening is then I see myself as a monster.
Oh, yes. So just check and see if you'd like this evening to step in to your birth mother's experience with my support, or if you'd rather not. I don't want to. I hear that it's where you're going.
No, I think I'd like to do that because I feel safe and I'm supported and
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, birth mom of Nicole, sounds like you have a contract to see your child as something to be ashamed of. The words would be, I, Nicole's mom, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will see my baby as something to be ashamed of in order to.
I, Nicole's mom, do solemnly swear that I shall see my baby, Nicole, as something to be ashamed of.
In order to.
In order to make sense of her own world. I don't know that the answers that I have is outside of wedlock in a country apart from her husband, and returned to Canada pregnant with a child that didn't belong to her.
It's like, as I step into this with you and I accompany Nicole's mom, there's this. May I propose some words too? I, Nicole's mom, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will see my baby at Nicole as something to be ashamed of in order to get rid of the enormous shame that I'm feeling so that I can keep breathing, so that I'm not killed by it. And then just see, where do your thoughts go? Where do your words go? And is it still okay to be exploring this? We want to be really gentle with Nicole.
Yeah, I'm okay cognitively and emotionally.
Good.
My body is, in the height of anxiety it ever is the most.
Oh, wow.
Not the most like I've ever experienced, but like this is my
It's really
max.
high. Yeah, we're at max. Yeah.
But it's not unfamiliar to me, so I'm not overwhelmed or.
Okay. So, essential self of Nicole's mom. How do you like this vow?
I don't like it. It's complex and it's deep and it's largely or was largely out of my control.
Do you want to release Nicole's mom from this vow?
Yes.
Then just say, you can use your mom, if you know your birth mom's first name, you can use it, or you can just say, Nicole's mom, I release you from this vow.
No, Nicole's mom, I release you from this vow.
And I revoke this contract.
And I revoke this contract.
And instead, I give you my blessing to.
And instead, I give you my blessing to live.
Hmm.
within and outside of your humanity.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. Okay. And let's come back to Nicole and find out how the anxiety is.
It's about half.
Now we want to come back to your contract, to see yourself as something shameful in order to survive, in order to understand and make sense of your world. Do you want to change the words, or is it still a value you have?
No, it's an old contract that keeps revisiting.
Do you want to, does it feel like you want to say, Nicole, I release you from this contract?
Yeah. Nicole, I release you from this contract.
And I revoke this vow.
And I revoke this vow.
And instead, I give you my blessing.
And instead, I give you my blessing
To
live
live.
outside of your shame, but within your humanity, facing it all.
Oh, thank you.
You're human in the exact same ways.
So true. And tell me anything you want to about how you're doing now.
I think it provides some clarity around plausibility, why someone would act in such a way. And resonant or recognition that we all seek the same things for freedom and for depth and to live fully ourselves. And I would want her to have the same thing.
What's happening now with the half of anxiety that we were with? What's it doing?
It's about like a 3 or 4. It's still like my nervous system is still incredibly high. But there's a lot of understanding, and the nervous system, I think, is just the extent of the fear, the terror, the pain.
And I don't know if you like the words alarmed aloneness.
Absolutely, I was alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did some havening around that.
Around the aloneness.
Yeah. And that's what I had discovered, was that I was alone in this room, in my implicit memory.
Yeah.
In fear.
Yeah. Would you like to do a time travel to the baby before we close, or does it feel like you got to do that with the havening?
I think I'm gonna put that one to the side for now.
Very good. Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it a good place to stop then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Is it all right for people to name gifts received and needs met?
Absolutely. My healing is everyone else's.
Okay. And here we've got compassion, shared humanity, acknowledging. So, and I'm not going to read the ones where we're acknowledging things for Nicole, because what we want is, how did it touch your heart? How did it touch your heart? love, sweetness, beauty, connection, shared humanity, healing, inspiration, expansion, shared reality. My mother forced me to have an abortion. Tenderness, grace, following the body into relief and understanding, softness for the humanity of my bio mom, radiant lightness, soft heart, and more. I'll let you read them if you'd like. Is that okay? To read them to yourself silently.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. Glad to get to work with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. What I'd like to do now, for those of you who are here still, is to do a little group process for those of you who've been tempted tonight towards this territory, but who might just need a little bit of a sense of like doing this in community. For anybody who wants to write in the chat, I will see myself through my parents' eyes as, and then just see what how you see yourself through your parents' eyes. And then we'll do the next step after we get some number of these 4, 5, 6, I don't know, and then we'll do the next step in order to I will see myself in my parents' eyes. I'll read like 5 or 6 of them. Through my mother's eyes as a disappointment. I will see myself in my parents' eyes as stupid and irresponsible. I will see myself through my mother's eyes. I will see myself through my parents' eyes as a selfish, uptight, intense individual. I will see myself as shameful for being alive. I will see myself through my mother's eyes as shy. I will see myself through my mother's eyes as sick as a burden, as stupid through my foster mother's eyes, as unlovable, as needy for attention, and there are many more. Now just say, in order to, put in the in order to, and see what comes. I will see myself through my mother's eyes as, father's eyes as, in order to. In order to compete, in order to make sense of my parents' attitude, in order to not burden them, in order to be accepted, in order to explain her actions, in order to save her from the judgment of others, in order to make them right, in order to exist, to give another opportunity to heal, in order to not hassle them, in order to save my mother, in order to continue growing, to be loved, to keep the focus on me and off her own pain, at the same time helping her feel needed, in order to justify my actions, in order to not shame them, in order to validate the patriarchy, in order to see myself as a good parent, in order to give their world stability. And so now, just say to yourself, you can say it aloud or you can type it in. You can say, no matter the cost to myself and the people I love, I will believe this no matter the cost to myself and the people I love. And now, do you want to keep this vow? And in some cases, you'll want to keep it because it's life-saving even today. It has ensured your survival for 40, 50 years, and it's continuing to very much serve. Or it might be that there are some of you who have a sense that you'd like to release this vow. So for those of you who would like to release it, so for those of you who would like to keep the vow, just say, you can say it aloud or you can type it in the chat, thank you for this life-saving vow. And for those who want to release it, what's the blessing? If you say, I release you from this vow and I revoke this contract, what is the blessing? Not to pretend anymore, to be safe, to be your own authentic self, to be a separate human, to have all the feelings and let them have theirs, all my feelings, to feel safe around other humans, to accept both genders, to save her no matter the cost, give my blessing of getting support for myself, to have a more fulfilling relationship with others, to be seen. I release you so that you may live freely, abundantly, heal, and be a loving, supporting mother. Fully human, authentic, express the true nature, self-expression. To know myself and feel okay about it. My body, my sexuality, and my life now belong to me, and I will no longer fear the terror. Such beautiful blessings. All right. Oh. And then just notice your own bodies. How are your own bodies doing? And then it's 8:57, which is 3 minutes before the end time. But I'd like to, for those of you who want to stay and do the next piece, which is the contract that your mother or father might have had, then I want to give you a chance to do that. So I'll lead the group through that, whoever wants to stay. And someone writes, David writes, if I revoke this contract, who and where would I be? This is where the blessing comes in. The blessing tells us a little bit about how we might imagine something slightly different, either a little tiny partial release or a full release. You've seen both happening this evening. And so now the next step is my mother, whatever your name is, I, Kel's mother, I, Jaya's mother, I, Sarah's mother, solemnly swear to my essential self to see my child as, and just see what you want to put in. What happens now? Because the way that your mother sees you may be slightly different than what your vow was, or it may be deeper, or it may be the same. So just put in, if people would like to, for those who would like to, I, someone's mother, solemnly swear to my essential self to see my child as chaotic. There might be other things that people are seeing. And people are leaving and saying goodbye, 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 sweethearts. So glad to be with you. I will see my child as a threat to my sense of safety and identity. I will see my child as disappointing. I will see my child as not like myself. I will see my child as too overwhelming, as not good enough, as overly sensitive, lazy, not hardworking, as my external heart, timid and fearful. See my child as needing too much, as wrong. To see my child as broken. See my child as a nuisance. Now do the in order to. Now I, this person, solemnly swear to see my child as something other than whole and a delight. In order to. What are the in order tos? in order to not feel guilty about meeting her needs, in order to protect my self-respect, in order to distance myself from scary feelings, in order to have a purpose in life, in order to have the world make sense, to protect myself, to control, in order to not have to give what I don't have because I am so depressed, in order to protect her and not feel guilty, in order to be invisible and avoid rejection, to keep anyone from seeing who I am, to protect myself from social rejection, to avoid grieving my trauma, to have a reason to live, to make myself feel better, to protect my children, in order to get revenge on my ex, try to meet needs for being seen and understood, have power in my world, in order to preserve my sense of superiority, in order to have respect in society and belong to my family, in order to compel her to strive for generosity, in order to explain my fear of being a perfect parent, and many others that are very important. And now, the funny thing, you get to become your mother's or father's essential self. What happens when you step in to the person they would be if they had all of their trauma healed and they had a sense of connection to something, some kind of sense of something greater than self, life energy, if they were very supported. Step into that parent for a little minute, the essential self of the parent, who the parent would have been without all the trauma. And say to that one, do you like this contract? Essential self of my parent, do you like this contract? Is this a good contract for all of us? Some of them may say yes, in which case you get to have your parent say, thank you for this contract. And you just leave them and come back to your own body. Or if your parent says, no, I don't like this contract. If the essential self of your parent says, no, I don't like this contract, then you step out. And sorry, I'm getting a little tired. If your parent says that they don't like the contract and they want to release it, then you go on with the release process. There we go. There's brain back again. And see what the blessing is if the parent wants to release, if the essential self of the parent wants to release. What's the blessing? And go ahead and put the blessings in the chat if there are blessings. If they like the contract, then let the parent say to their essential self, thank you for this contract, it has saved my life. And then you just kind of get to come back to your own self with whatever knowledge you've gained from the experience of stepping into your parent. There's more work to do if the parent likes the contract. There's acknowledgement of the trauma in the parent's life. There's acknowledgement that the contract might be multi-generational. It can go for many, many generations, and they can have a contract to their family line rather than to their essential self. And so you can sort of put into your imagination all of the acknowledgements, Emily, that your parent might need about loneliness or terror or loss. And they're beautiful blessings. Your sensitivity is worthy of creation, a celebration, and I will celebrate that and the way it makes you as a person, as an artist. blessing of exuberant joy of life and creativity and being her authentic self, love and resilience, blessings in our shared humanity, to see her gifts, compassion, learning, shared enjoyment of discovering life. I, Evelyn, will honor my own needs and allow myself to be seen for the talented and loving person I truly am, while seeing that of my child that is within me. I discover the sweet release to not carry the burden of others. I can see my daughter, knowing you're lovable, to love this sweet little girl and welcome her just as she is. And just acknowledging, again, if the parent can't release, then there's a sweetness to the idea that they want to, even if they can't. Oh. Oh. No, I don't like this contract. And my daughter would have less illness and pain and be able to sleep and to breathe and not take on the burden of the ancestors and be less alone. To not carry the ancestral trauma and love myself fully and my child. Blessings to learn, grow, and to have capacity to find support and trust, to create safety, to heal this relationship, to rejoice in my and my daughter's thriving. The blessing of autonomy, and he wished his non-essential self had the same privilege at my age. Let go of the trauma from the ancestors so that we will be healthier on all levels. Very beautiful. Thank you, and good night to Liz. Now, thank you all for taking part in that group process. It was very beautiful. I think what I would love is to hear your gifts received and needs met from being here tonight. I'd love that. Yeah. And there's a question that Sasha has. Sasha, do you want to come off mute? And then we'll catch gifts received and needs.
Yes, and I can even sandwich my question with the gifts received of illumination and understanding and support and community.
Oh, happy.
So in this idea that, of course, we come to see ourselves through the gaze of our parents of necessity.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that movement to separate oneself from the traumatized, weak, or vulnerable self, that if I can differentiate myself from that, the origins of self-hatred.
Yeah.
In a sense, is that almost what is happening, that part of that movement toward no, I'm separating myself from you is
absolutely,
this part of me will join my parent self, and this part is the part that we don't like.
Exactly. Yeah. It's another way to look at exactly that. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sasha. Beautiful. And then if anybody wants to come off mute and speak, you're very welcome to, and I'll just read the gifts received and needs met silently if there's no one who wants to speak.
And Sarah, you may want to read just a couple for the recording.
Oh, okay. Deep feeling of our common humanity and inspiration and gratitude that healing happens. Hearing Sarah's gentle voice, for seeing people in tender intimacy with themselves, safety, safe container, allowance to be true to myself in these processes.
And we have a hand up as well.
Oh, wonderful. I'll read two more and then we'll catch Rosemary. Gifts received to connect to all my parts of me and be one in love. Jennifer writes, insight and clarity and shared reality, support and creativity. Yes, Rosemary, how wonderful to hear your voice.
Thank you. Oh, I just wanted to share mine out loud. I love all your classes, but this one, it was just yes, yes, yes. Oh, let me put my video on. And huge needs met for making sense of and understanding behaviors I've never understood or been able to understand.
Oh,
It's like I've been internally doing this Rubik's Cube and I can never get the things to line up, and they started to line up. And forgiveness, and particularly I started to understand my stepfather's that it's about his need for belonging with men, and that's why he holds that belief that women are less in order to join. And so that makes it lessens it. It makes me, okay, that makes sense. I have a need for belonging as well. So yeah, clarity, learning, understanding, compassion, connect the dots, like, thank you.
hey. Oh, Rosemary, thank you for sharing aloud. I'm so grateful. Wow, thank you. Empathy, tenderness, awe, and respect towards those that spoke and willingly stepped into the circle, showing vulnerability and strength. A feeling of collective magic of experience and shared reality to move through these feelings, as well as really feeling the cold shock of parental gazes and how they really affected my sense of self and others. And who has a hand up? Might be.
Hi there. Thank you. I'm stuck way back early on somewhere.
Okay.
When you say, like, I was actually doing this with not my parents, but with somebody else in my family. And, when you see, I will see myself through so-and-so's eyes as something in order to, well, what I'm thinking is, I don't have the in order to, and I don't really feel that I'm seeing myself through their eyes, but I feel the impact of how they see me. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, of
So
course.
I'm not getting the in order to.
Well, if you, I think it sounds like what's needed is a time travel for the little one who received that gaze.
Okay, and that might not even be back to childhood. If it's somebody, say it's a sibling or something, it could be just 20 years ago or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Childhood.
Yeah, no, it could be for last week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Smitha, you had a hand up. And Smitha, I don't know that we're able to hear you. Can you try speaking? Okay, I'm going to put you on mute. All right. Well, thank you all for your presence. Thank you for your kind words. I'm sure they're true, authentic words. Thank you for your true, authentic words. And so there's so much kindness in them. Really receiving the warmth. And so I'm just so grateful that you were here. And sending you all tons of warmth and care. And if you would like to come off mute now and say goodbye, then we'd love to wave at you and say goodbye to you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye. Love you too. Bye, Nina.
Bye. Thank
Happy
you.
time. Bye, Stephanie.